The security camera captures it all in grainy black and white, a woman in a navy jacket, tan leather purse, slung over her shoulder, smiling as she types a quick text message. Brenda Edwards has just finished another long shift at the clinic. The autumn air is thick with moisture, a fine mist beginning to roll through the quiet streets of this small South Carolina town. She slides her phone into her purse, pulls her keys from her pocket, and walks toward her silver Toyota Corolla. The parking lot is nearly empty now. Street lamps cast long shadows across the pavement, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. Brenda unlocks her car door, license plate number carefully noted by investigators who would later study this footage, frame by frame, and climbs inside. The camera watches as her headlights flicker on. She backs out slowly, turns toward Main Street, and drives into the misty darkness. It's the last time anyone will ever see Brenda Edwards alive. By morning, her car has vanished. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. Her children wake up in an empty house wondering where their mother has gone. And for the next 17 years, this town will carry a terrible secret, one that no one, not even the killer living among them, could have imagined, would eventually surface through the power of science and an unwavering family's refusal to give up hope. No one knew it then, but Brenda's disappearance would haunt this community for nearly 2 decades, until DNA and determination finally revealed a truth hiding in plain sight. Before we uncover how this case unraveled after years of silence, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We share stories of cold cases solved through persistence, cutting-edge technology, and the relentless pursuit of justice for families who refuse to forget. Brenda Edwards was the kind of person who made you feel like you mattered. At 35, she had that rare combination of warmth and strength that drew people to her like sunlight after rain. As a registered nurse at Palmetto Community Clinic, she knew half the town by name, not just as patients, but as neighbors, friends, people whose stories she remembered, and whose trouble she genuinely cared about. She'd stay late if someone needed her, recalls Dr. Patricia Hillman, who worked alongside Brenda for 6 years. I'd tell her to go home, that the patient could wait until morning, but Brenda would just shake her head. They're scared, she'd say. I can't leave them scared. Her sister, Jennifer, describes a woman whose entire world revolved around her 2 children, 8-year-old Michael and 10-year-old Sarah. Every morning, Brenda would pack their lunches with little notes tucked inside. Have a great day, sweetheart. Or remember, you're braver than you know. She never missed a school play, never forgot a parent-teacher conference, and never let a bedtime story go unread. Sundays found the Edwards family in the 3rd pew at Mount Calvary Baptist Church, where Brenda volunteered in the children's ministry. She organized the annual Christmas pageant, helped serve meals at the community soup kitchen, and somehow always had time to bring casseroles to families facing tough times. Her laugh echoed through church halls and clinic corridors alike, a sound that made everything seem a little brighter. Brenda was one of those people who made you want to be better, says her pastor, Reverend Michael Thompson. She saw the good in everyone, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. October 12, 2006, started like any other Thursday. Brenda arrived at the clinic at 7 a.m., coffee in hand, ready for what she knew would be a busy day. The autumn flu season was hitting hard, and the clinic was packed with patients. She moved through her shift with her usual grace, checking on elderly Mrs. Patterson's blood pressure, calming a frightened child before his vaccination, and helping a teenager understand her diabetes medication. At 8:45 p.m. she finally finished her paperwork. Her last call of the day was to Jennifer. I'm beat, Brenda had said, her voice tired but warm. But I promised Sarah I'd help her with her science project tomorrow morning. Can we do coffee this weekend instead? Of course, Jennifer replied. Drive safe, okay? It's getting foggy out there. Always do. Love you. Those were the last words Jennifer would ever hear her sister speak. 28 minutes later, Brenda Edwards walked into that misty October night and vanished from the world, as completely as if she had never existed at all. 10:00 p.m. Brenda always called, every single night after work, without fail. She'd check in with Jennifer. Made it home safe, she'd say, or, kids are asleep, finally have a minute to breathe. It was their ritual, their way of staying connected in busy lives. The phone doesn't ring. 10:15 p.m. Jennifer tries calling. Straight to voicemail. She tries again. Nothing. 10:45 p.m. A knot forms in Jennifer's stomach. She drives to Brenda's house on Maple Street. The driveway is empty. No silver Corolla. No lights in the windows. She uses her spare key to check inside. Brenda's scrubs from yesterday are still in the laundry basket. Her coffee mug sits unwashed in the sink. Everything is exactly as it should be, except Brenda isn't there. 11:30 p.m. Jennifer calls the clinic. Dr. Hillman confirms Brenda left around 9. She seemed tired but fine, the doctor says. Said something about helping Sarah with homework in the morning. Midnight, the call that changes everything. Jennifer's hands shake as she dials. My sister is missing, she tells the dispatcher. She always calls. She always comes home. Something's wrong. Within an hour, Palmetto County Sheriff's deputies are combing the road between the clinic and Brenda's house. They check the ditches, the wooded areas, and the old abandoned buildings where someone might pull off the road. Nothing. It's as if Brenda and her car simply evaporated. By dawn, search helicopters circle overhead, their rotors beating against the thick morning air. Bloodhounds pick up Brenda's scent in the clinic parking lot, then lose it completely at the street. Volunteers gather at Mount Calvary Baptist Church. Teachers from the kids' school, patients from the clinic, and neighbors who knew Brenda's smile. They spread out across the county and organize search parties, calling her name through pine forests and tobacco fields. The local TV stations pick up the story by noon. Brenda's smiling face, pulled from last year's church directory, appears on screen after screen. Missing nurse vanishes without trace, the headlines read. Tips start pouring in. Someone thinks they saw a silver Toyota at a gas station in Orangeburg. Another caller swears they spotted Brenda at a rest stop near Columbia. Each lead sends deputies racing across the county, only to find empty roads and disappointed hope. 3 days into the search, a jogger finds something that makes everyone's blood run cold. Tucked behind an old, abandoned Texaco station 15 miles from the clinic, partially hidden under a pile of leaves, Brenda's tan leather purse. Her wallet is still inside, credit cards and driver's license untouched. Her phone is there too, battery dead. But the purse itself tells a story, scuff marks on the leather, the strap partially torn as if it had been yanked away or thrown. Crime scene techs process it carefully, but in 2006, DNA technology is still limited. They find some fibers and a few smudged fingerprints, but nothing that immediately points to a suspect. The discovery brings hundreds more volunteers to the search area around the gas station. They comb through every inch of surrounding woods, wade through marshy areas, and check abandoned wells and old mine shafts. The search expands to neighboring counties, then to neighboring states. Brenda's photo appears on billboards, milk cartons, and missing person websites. But as October turns to November, and November bleeds into December, the terrible truth begins to settle over everyone involved. Brenda Edwards has vanished, as completely as if she never existed. Her car remains missing. Her body is nowhere to be found, and somewhere out there, someone knows exactly what happened to her. Someone who's watching the search efforts, reading the newspaper coverage, and keeping their terrible secret locked away. 18 months after Brenda's disappearance, Detective Ray Morrison closes her case file and places it in the cold case cabinet, not because he wants to, but because he has to. Active investigations demand resources, time, manpower, lab work, and after a year and a half of chasing every lead, interviewing every person who knew Brenda, and re-examining every piece of evidence, the trail has gone completely cold. It kills me, Morrison admits to Jennifer during one of their final official meetings. I've got 3 daughters myself. If it were one of them, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. The anniversaries become Jennifer's burden to bear. Every October 12th, she organizes a vigil at the church. The first year, nearly 300 people show up, holding candles and sharing memories of Brenda. Local news crews film the ceremony. Politicians promise renewed efforts. The story makes the front page of the regional newspaper, but grief, like attention, fades. Year 2 brings maybe 100 people, and year 5, it's down to 30 or 40. mostly family, close friends, and a few church members who can't bear to let Jennifer stand alone. By year 10, it's Jennifer, her parents Brenda's children, now teenagers trying to understand why their mother never came home, and Pastor Thompson, who continues to offer prayers for answers that never seem to come. The children grow up in the shadow of their mother's disappearance. Michael throws himself into sports, as if constant motion can outrun the questions that follow him everywhere. Sarah becomes quiet and studious, the kind of teenager who carries adult worries on young shoulders. They both learn to navigate the painful small-town reality of being the kids whose mom disappeared. Pitying looks from teachers, whispered conversations that stop when they enter a room. Jennifer fights to keep Brenda's memory alive, but it's exhausting work. She maintains a Facebook page that gets fewer and fewer visits each year. She sends Christmas cards to the detective who took over Morrison's cases, gently reminding him that Brenda's family hasn't forgotten. She calls the sheriff's office every few months, asking if there's anything new, knowing there won't be but unable to stop herself from asking. The cruel hoaxes are the worst part. In 2009, someone calls claiming to have seen Brenda in a Walmart in Georgia. Jennifer drives 4 hours, walks through every aisle, studies every face, and comes home empty-handed and heartbroken. In 2012, a psychic contacts the family, claiming she can see where Brenda is buried. She leads them to a remote field, where they spend 2 days digging holes in the red clay, finding nothing but their own diminished hope. The technology that might have helped solve Brenda's case exists somewhere in the world, advancing rapidly through the 2010s. DNA analysis becomes more sophisticated. Genetic genealogy begins solving decades-old cases in other states. But Brenda's evidence sits in an evidence locker, processed with 206 technology, cataloged in a system that doesn't automatically flag old cases for new testing. Every year feels like the day she vanished. Jennifer tells a reporter on the 15th anniversary. The article runs on page 6 of the local paper, just a few paragraphs below an ad for a furniture store sale. Most people in town have moved on. New families have arrived, kids who never knew Brenda Edwards or her bright smile. Life has continued, as life always does, around the empty space where one woman used to be. But in Jennifer's house, in her parents' house, in the hearts of 2 children who became adults without their mother, time stopped on October 12, 26. They live in a suspended state of waiting, hoping and gradually losing faith that answers will ever come. No one imagines that 15 miles away, the person who knows exactly what happened to Brenda is living his normal life, going to work, coaching Little League, and attending the same church where Brenda's vigils are held. He watches the search efforts from his front porch. He reads the newspaper articles. He sees Jennifer's pain and says nothing. For 17 years, he carries his secret like a stone in his chest, never imagining that science will eventually catch up with his carefully hidden truth. March 15, 2023. Detective Lisa Chen has been with the Palmetto County Sheriff's Office for 8 years, but she's never seen the cold case files until Sheriff Williams assigns her to the newly formed cold case unit. The stack of boxes in the basement storage room contains 43 unsolved cases dating back to the 1980s. Some files are thick with investigation notes and evidence logs. Others are heartbreakingly thin cases that never gained traction, leads that dried up too quickly, families whose stories got buried under newer tragedies. The evidence from Brenda's purse has been sitting in cold storage for 17 years, hair fibers, fabric samples, and most importantly, several swabs containing unknown DNA profiles. In 2006, those profiles could be processed and stored, but the limited database meant they rarely led to matches. In 2023, Detective Chen has access to something Morrison could only dream about: genetic genealogy. She sends the DNA samples to Parabon Nanolabs, a company that specializes in using publicly available genealogy databases to solve cold cases. The process that once would have taken months now takes weeks. Technicians build detailed genetic profiles, then search through millions of family trees uploaded to sites like GED Match and Family Tree DNA by amateur genealogists researching their ancestry. The call comes on April 3rd, just before lunch. Dr. Sarah Martinez from Parabon is calling with results. Detective Chen, we have something significant, Dr. Martinez says. The DNA from your evidence has provided a strong genealogical match. We've identified a family lineage that leads to several potential suspects in your geographic area. Chen's hands start shaking as she writes down the names. The genealogy analysis has narrowed the field to 3 men, all living within 30 miles of where Brenda disappeared. All are the right age. All have been in the area since at least one name stops her cold. David Ray Hutchins, age 54, resident of Palmetto County since. She knows that name, not from the case file. Hutchins was never interviewed in 2006, but from around town. He runs Hutchins Auto Repair on Highway 78. Chen has had her own car serviced there twice. He's quiet and competent, the kind of mechanic who fixes what needs fixing without trying to sell you unnecessary work. He sponsors a little league team. His wife teaches Sunday school at First Presbyterian. They have 2 grown children and 3 grandchildren. The revelation hits like a physical blow. The person who may have killed Brenda Edwards has been hiding in plain sight for 17 years, living and working in the same community, surrounded by people who know and trust him. Chen immediately starts pulling records. David Hutchins has a clean criminal history. 1 speeding ticket in 2018. Nothing else. No domestic violence calls to his address. No restraining orders or protective orders filed against him. By all outward appearances, he's a model citizen, the kind of man neighbors describe as keeps to himself but always willing to help if you need it. But the DNA doesn't lie. And when Chen digs deeper into Hutchins's business records, she finds something that makes her pulse quicken. Repair invoices from September. Brenda Edwards brought her Toyota Corolla to Hutchins Auto Repair for a routine oil change and brake inspection on September 20. That afternoon, Chen calls Jennifer. After 17 years of disappointment, Jennifer has learned to temper her hope when the sheriff's office calls. Usually, it's just an update on the annual review of the case, or a request to update contact information. Jennifer, I need you to sit down, Chen says. We may have found him. For the first time in 17 years, Jennifer Edwards allows herself to believe that her sister's killer might finally face justice. David Ray Hutchins lives in a modest 2-story house on Elm Street, 3 blocks from the elementary school where Brenda's children once attended classes. His front yard is meticulously maintained, grass cut to exactly 2 inches, flower beds weeded and mulched, and an American flag hanging from a pole by the front door. Neighbors describe him as quiet but friendly, the kind of man who waves when you drive by and always returns borrowed tools. For 28 years, he's owned and operated Hutchins Auto Repair, a 2-bay garage that handles everything from oil changes to engine rebuilds. Regular customers know they can trust David to diagnose problems honestly and fix them efficiently. He doesn't overcharge, doesn't push unnecessary services, and takes pride in his work. The wall of his office is covered with thank you cards from satisfied customers and photos of the youth baseball teams he's sponsored. Linda Hutchins, his wife of 31 years, teaches the 4-year-old Sunday school class at First Presbyterian Church. She's known for her patience with restless children and her legendary banana pudding at church potlucks. Their son Mark works as an electrician in Charleston. Their daughter Amy is a teacher in Columbia. Sunday dinners at the Hutchins house are loud, happy affairs with grandchildren chasing the family dog through the backyard. This is the man whose DNA matches evidence from Brenda Edwards' purse. Detective Chen spends 2 weeks building her case before making any moves. She reviews Hutchins's whereabouts during the original investigation. Somehow, despite servicing Brenda's car just 2 weeks before her disappearance, he was never interviewed by Detective Morrison's team. The connection was missed, lost in the chaos of those first desperate weeks, when investigators were chasing hundreds of leads and interviewing anyone who had recent contact with Brenda. Cell phone records from 2006 are sketchy, but Chen manages to obtain Hutchins's phone data from that October night. Tower pings place his phone near the clinic around 9:20 p.m., just minutes after Brenda was last seen on surveillance footage. At 9:47 p.m., his phone pings a tower near the abandoned gas station where Brenda's ass would be found 3 days later. After that, the phone goes dark, turned off or disabled. The pattern is damning, but Chen knows she needs more than circumstantial evidence and a DNA match. She needs a confession, or she needs to find Brenda's body, or she needs physical evidence that definitively links Hutchins to the crime scene. Working with the district attorney's office, Chen develops a careful plan. They'll execute a search warrant and arrest Hutchins simultaneously, hoping to catch him off guard and potentially extract a confession before he has time to construct a defense. The search warrant covers Hutchins's house, his auto repair shop, and any vehicles registered to him. They're looking for anything that might connect him to Brenda's disappearance, her missing car, personal belongings, photographs, anything that might explain why a seemingly normal mechanic would kill a nurse he barely knew. April 18, 2023. 6:07 a.m. The arrest team assembles at the sheriff's office while it's still dark outside. Chen has barely slept in 3 days. This is the moment 17 years in the making. The answer to prayers that Jennifer Edwards never stopped saying. The closure that 2 grown children have needed since they were 8 and 10 years old. At exactly 6:30 a.m., 3 unmarked cars pull up to 247 Elm Street. David Hutchins is in his garage, getting ready to leave for work, when Detective Chen knocks on the side door. "David Hutchins?" she says when he opens the door. "I'm Detective Chen with the Palmetto County Sheriff's Office. You're under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of Brenda Edwards." The coffee mug in his hand falls to the concrete floor and shatters. For just a moment, before training and lawyers and decades of hidden guilt kick in, David Ray Hutchins's face shows something that Detective Chen will remember for the rest of her career. Not surprise, but relief. As if part of him has been waiting 17 years for this knock on his door. The interrogation room at the Palmetto County Sheriff's Office hasn't been updated since 1987. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting harsh shadows across a metal table and 3 uncomfortable chairs. David Hutchins sits with his hands folded, still wearing the oil-stained work shirt he put on that morning, probably planning nothing more complicated than replacing brake pads and changing transmission fluid. Detective Chen places a manila folder on the table, but doesn't open it yet. She's conducted hundreds of interrogations, but this one feels different. 17 years of a family's anguish sits heavy in the room, along with the weight of a secret that's been carried too long. "David, I'm going to read you your rights again. Make sure you understand them," Chen begins. "You have the right to remain silent." But Hutchins interrupts her. "I know my rights," he says quietly. "I've been expecting this for a long time." Chen stops reading. In all her years of police work, she's never heard a suspect say those words before an interrogation even begins. "What do you mean you've been expecting this?" Hutchins stares at his hands for a long moment. When he looks up, his eyes are red-rimmed and tired. "The DNA, right? That's how you found me." Chen nods, but doesn't elaborate. "Let him talk. I always knew it would catch up with me eventually," Hutchins continues. "Science keeps getting better. I watch those shows on TV and see how they solve old cases. I knew someday." He trails off, then looks directly at Chen. "Are you going to ask me what happened, or do you already know?" "Why don't you tell me what happened, David?" The story that comes out over the next 3 hours is horrifying in its randomness. On October 12, 2006, David Hutchins was driving home from his shop when he saw Brenda Edwards's Toyota Corolla pulled over on Highway 728 with its hazard lights flashing. He recognized the car he'd just serviced it 2 weeks earlier. Being a good Samaritan, he pulled over to help. Brenda was trying to change a flat tire in the misty darkness, struggling with a lug wrench that wouldn't budge. Hutchins offered to help. She was grateful, he said, relieved to see a familiar face. He changed the tire quickly, refused her offer of payment, and was about to leave when something in him snapped. "I don't know why," he tells Chen, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'd never heard anyone before, never even thought about it. But she was there, alone, and I grabbed her." What followed was a brief, violent struggle. Brenda fought back, scratching at his face, trying to scream. Her purse fell to the ground during the struggle, spilling its contents across the gravel. Hutchins panicked, forced her into his truck, and drove to a remote area he knew from childhood hunting trips. Chen has to stop the interview twice, once to compose herself, once to call the district attorney and confirm they're recording everything correctly. This is the confession they've dreamed of. But hearing the details of Brenda's final moments is almost unbearable. "Where is she, David?" Chen finally asks. "Where is Brenda's body?" Hutchins gives detailed directions to a wooded area near the Edisto River, about 40 miles from where Brenda disappeared. He buried her there, along with her car keys and cell phone. Her Toyota Corolla was driven to a chop shop in Georgia, where it was stripped for parts within days of her death. The confession spreads through the sheriff's office like wildfire. Within an hour, Chen is on the phone with Jennifer Edwards, delivering news that's both devastating and liberating. "We found him," Chen says. "And Jennifer, he told us where she is." The recovery operation begins immediately. Crime scene techs, cadaver dogs, and excavation equipment converge on the coordinates Hutchins provided. After 17 years of wondering, of hoping against hope that somehow Brenda might still be alive somewhere, Jennifer finally has an answer. They find her on April 20th, 2 days after Hutchins's arrest. Brenda Edwards is buried in a shallow grave beneath 17 years of fallen leaves and forest growth. Her remains are carefully and respectfully recovered and transported to the state crime lab for official identification. The news breaks that evening on every local station and spreads across social media within hours. Palmetto County cold case solved. After 17 years, DNA evidence leads to arrest in Edwards' murder. Local mechanic confesses to two. But the headlines can't capture the most shocking part of the story. For 17 years, Brenda Edwards' killer lived and worked in the same community where he'd committed his crime. He fixed cars for people who participated in searches for her. He attended the same church where her memorial services were held. He sponsored Little League teams that might have included children who grew up hearing Brenda's story. The man who destroyed a family, who stole a mother from her children, and left a community haunted by unanswered questions, was hiding in plain sight all along, not as a monster, but as a neighbor. The courtroom is packed on the morning of October 15, 2023, almost exactly 17 years after Brenda Edwards disappeared. Every seat is filled with family members, friends, community members who never forgot her story, and reporters covering what has become the most significant criminal case in Palmetto County history. David Ray Hutchins sits at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, flanked by two public defenders who have the impossible task of defending a man who confessed in detail to kidnapping and murder. His wife Linda is not in the courtroom. His children are not there either. The family that seemed so normal, so typically American, has been shattered by the revelation of what their patriarch was capable of. District Attorney Margaret Foster stands to address the jury, her opening statement measured and powerful. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about 17 years of stolen time. Time stolen from Brenda Edwards, who will never see her children graduate, never hold her grandchildren, never grow old with the people she loved. Time stolen from her family, who spent nearly 2 decades wondering what happened to their daughter, their sister, their mother." The prosecution's case is methodical and overwhelming. DNA evidence places Hutchins at the crime scene. Cell phone records track his movements that night. His own confession, recorded and played for the jury, leaves no room for doubt about what happened or who was responsible. "Relief," Jennifer says, tears streaming down her face, and rage, but mostly relief. For 17 years, we didn't know if she suffered, if she was afraid, or if she thought we'd forgotten about her. Now we know she's at peace. Now we can finally say goodbye. Michael Edwards, now 25 and a paramedic, testifies about growing up without his mother. "Every major moment of my life, graduation, my wedding, the birth of my daughter, there's been this empty space where she should have been," he tells the jury. "This man didn't just kill my mother, he stole every moment we should have had together." Sarah Edwards, now 27 and a teacher like her aunt, speaks directly to Hutchins when she takes the stand. "I forgive you," she says, her voice steady and strong. "Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because carrying hatred for 17 years almost destroyed our family. My mother wouldn't want that. She'd want us to find peace." The defense presents no witnesses and calls no experts. There is no defense for what David Hutchins did, no explanation that could justify or mitigate his actions. His lawyers make a brief closing argument, focused on sparing him the death penalty, citing his clean record before the crime and his cooperation with authorities after his arrest. The jury deliberates for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts, the foreman announces. Kidnapping in the first degree, murder in the first degree, and obstruction of justice. Judge Harrison sentences Hutchins to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 30 years. As court officers prepare to lead him away, Hutchins stands and turns toward the Edwards family. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice barely audible. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry." Jennifer Edwards looks him in the eye and nods once. It's not forgiveness, it's acknowledgement. An ending, finally, to a story that began on a foggy October night 17 years earlier. Detective Chen watches from the courthouse steps, thinking about the boxes of cold cases still sitting in the basement of the sheriff's office. 42 other families are still waiting for answers, still hoping that science and persistence might eventually bring them the same closure the Edwards family found today. Justice delayed is not justice denied, she tells a reporter who asks about the significance of solving such an old case. Sometimes it just takes longer than we'd like. 6 months after David Hutchins's conviction, Jennifer Edwards stands in the sanctuary of Mount Calvary Baptist Church, looking out at a congregation that has supported her family through the darkest chapter of their lives. It's Mother's Day 2024, and for the first time in 18 years, she's not planning a vigil or organizing a search, or wondering if this will be the year they finally get answers. Instead, she's here to dedicate a memorial garden in Brenda's honor, a peaceful space where people can sit and remember not how Brenda died, but how she lived. The garden features native South Carolina plants that bloom throughout the year, ensuring there's always something beautiful growing in Brenda's memory. A bench faces east toward the sunrise, inscribed with words Brenda used to tell her children, "Be brave, be kind, and never stop helping others." Michael Edwards, now a father himself, brings his 18-month-old daughter to visit the garden regularly. "I want her to know about her grandmother," he explains to visitors. "Not the tragedy, but the woman. The nurse who stayed late when people needed her. The mother who packed love notes in our lunchboxes. The person who made everyone feel important." Sarah Edwards has channeled her grief into advocacy work. She speaks at conferences about victims' rights and the importance of never giving up on cold cases. She's working with state legislators to expand funding for DNA testing of old evidence and to create a database that automatically flags unsolved cases for review when new technology becomes available. Brenda's case might have been solved years earlier if the right protocols had been in place, Sarah tells a conference of law enforcement officials. "We can't bring her back, but we can make sure other families don't wait as long as we did." The Edwards family has also established a scholarship fund in Brenda's name, providing financial assistance to nursing students who demonstrate both academic excellence and a commitment to community service. The first recipient, awarded in 2024, is a single mother from a small town similar to where Brenda grew up. Someone who understands that nursing is about more than medical procedures, it's about caring for people when they're at their most vulnerable. Detective Chen has taken on a new role as the lead investigator for the Cold Case Unit, which has expanded to include 3 full-time detectives and a forensic genealogist. Brenda's case became a model for how modern technology can be applied to old evidence, and the unit has already solved 4 additional cases using similar techniques. "Every solved case matters," Chen says, "but Brenda's case showed us what's possible when we refuse to give up. It gave hope to families who thought their cases would never be solved." The ripple effects of justice extend beyond the Edwards family to the entire community. The revelation that a killer had lived among them for 17 years forced difficult conversations about how well people really know their neighbors, about the masks that dangerous people can wear, and about the importance of remaining vigilant even in small, seemingly safe communities. David Hutchins remains in Lieber Correctional Institution, serving his life sentence in relative anonymity. His auto repair shop was sold within months of his arrest. His family has moved away from Palmetto County, trying to rebuild their lives away from the shadow of his crimes. Linda Hutchins filed for divorce and returned to her maiden name. Their children have changed their names as well, seeking to escape the association with their father's actions. The house on Elm Street, where Hutchins lived for decades, sits empty, a for sale sign in the yard growing more weathered with each passing season. Real estate agents say it's hard to sell a house with such a dark history, but eventually, time will fade the stigma, and a new family will make it home, probably never knowing about the terrible secret that was once kept within its walls. On quiet evenings, Jennifer Edwards often drives past the clinic where her sister worked, past the road Brenda would have taken home that October night, and past the places where their family's life changed forever. It's not a pilgrimage of grief anymore, but something closer to gratitude, thankfulness for the years they had together, for the answers they finally received, and for the knowledge that Brenda's story, which began in tragedy, ultimately became a testament to the power of love, persistence, and hope. The case of Brenda Edwards proves that silence, no matter how long it lasts, is not permanent. Truth has a way of surfacing, justice has a way of arriving, and families who refuse to give up hope sometimes find that hope rewarded in ways they never dared imagine. Her story stands as proof that no matter how much time passes, no matter how cold a case becomes, love and determination can still triumph over evil. And somewhere, families still waiting for answers can look at what happened in Palmetto County and know that their loved ones are not forgotten, that science is still advancing, and that tomorrow might finally be the day their long wait for justice comes to an end. In the Memorial Garden at Mount Calvary Baptist Church, flowers bloom in every season, seasons change, and life continues, not the same as it was before, but whole again in a way that seemed impossible for 17 long years. And in that continuity, in that healing, Brenda Edwards lives on, not as a victim of a terrible crime, but as a beloved mother, sister, and friend, whose memory inspired a community to never stop believing in the possibility of justice. The disappearance and murder of Brenda Edwards represents one of hundreds of cold cases solved through advances in DNA technology and genetic genealogy. Her story serves as both a reminder of the devastating impact of violent crime on families and communities, and as proof that persistence, scientific advancement, and unwavering hope can still deliver justice, no matter how much time has passed.